Hi there students. Okay, this video is going to be about phrasal verbs with rip. To rip off, to rip up, to rip into, and to rip through. So firstly, for a second, let's just look at the meaning of rip. Okay, to rip means to tear. To rip. You can also use rip meaning to move very rapidly, to move very fast and quite violently. So let's start with the phrasal verb to rip off. I'm sure most of you know this phrasal verb. To rip off means to swindle, to cheat somebody, to steal. You can also have a phrasal noun, a rip-off. So the shopkeeper tried to rip me off by shortchanging me, by not giving me enough change when I bought something from him. So, to cheat. False advertising designed to rip customers off, to cheat them, to make them buy something that they're going to be very disappointed with when they finish. The concert was a rip-off. The band only played for 15 minutes. Again, swindle. He ripped off a bottle of whiskey from the corner shop. Here it means steal. He ripped off the corner shop. He stole from the corner shop. It's more common to use rip-off meaning to swindle, but you can also use it just to mean to steal. Yeah, some boys ripped off my telephone. Yeah. Okay, notice as well, to rip off is a separable phrasal verb. Ripped it off. The pronoun must go between the rip and the off. Rip me off, rip you off. But if it's the object, ripped the bottle of whiskey off, ripped off the bottle of whiskey. Okay, to rip up, to tear to pieces, to break. So, to rip up. He ripped up the piece of paper, yeah? Okay, to tear to pieces. He ripped up the contract. She ripped up the letter. The up here gives the idea of completely. He ripped up the shirt to make bandages. Notice you can also use rip up figuratively. We ripped up the rule book and did it in our own way. So we didn't pay any attention to it. We said end of the rule book. And maybe he ripped up the floor and put a new one in as well, to break up. Going back to rip off, yeah, he ripped off his clothes, to take off as well. But that's, I think, much less of a phrasal verb. Notice, to rip up is also separable. He ripped it up. Okay? He ripped the piece of paper up, he ripped up the piece of paper, but not he ripped up it. To rip into, to criticize strongly. My boss ripped into me for losing the contract. He was very angry. Rah, 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 rah. Okay, he ripped into me. The press ripped into the Prime Minister for inept handling of the crisis. They criticised him very strongly. My mum ripped into me when she discovered that I'd been playing truant from school, not going to school. So she was very angry with me. So to rip into somebody, to be angry with them, to say all the things that you think are wrong with them. Notice, to rip into, this is inseparable. Ripped into him. Ripped into the Prime Minister. Here the object must always go after the into. And then finally, to rip through, to go through very rapidly. We ripped through the exercises and started a new topic. You can also use it to mean to go through violently. The storm ripped through the city and there was a lot of damage caused. The barbarians ripped through the village, stealing everything they could find. We've been ripping through our savings and soon they will be gone. So to go through rapidly or violently or strongly. Notice, rip through it. Again, inseparable. Ripped through the city. The object must go after the through. Okay, so let's look at formality for a second. To steal or to cheat or a rip-off, I would give this 3 in formality. For an informal conversation, an informal letter, but something semi-formal or formal, to steal, to swindle, to cheat, to embezzle, yeah, something like that. To rip up, to tear up, to break to pieces. A 4 in formality. He ripped up the letter. It's informal again. Use it, informal conversation, informal writing. I think maybe to break or to tear up, I would use more formally. To rip into somebody, very informal again, a 3, maybe even a 2.5. More formally used to criticize. And then to rip through something, to go quickly and violently, again, a 3 in formality. I think more formally, maybe to storm through, something like that. Okay, so what about the origin? Well, there was a Middle English word, rippen, meaning to pick or to pluck. And that in turn goes back to a Proto-Germanic word, rupjana, meaning to, I think, to break or to rip as well. So let's just recap. To rip off, to steal from, to swindle, a rip-off. Yeah? Corrupt politicians rip off society. To rip up, to break to pieces. He ripped up the letter. He ripped up the shirt. To rip into, to criticize strongly. They ripped into me for the mistakes I had made. And then to rip through, to go through fast and violently. The virus ripped through society. And notice as well, to rip, a regular verb. He ripped me off, he has ripped me off before. So there you go. If you enjoyed the video, give it a rating, subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now. Rip off, rip up, rip into, rip through.